Okay, this video is called Is Harvard a Joke? And I'm going to talk about Harvard in some detail. There's a few general things about college in general though, that I want to address first. This will relate to Harvard, but this is slightly different. First of all, there was a biology professor. He's from Texas, St. Philip's University in San Antonio, and he's getting fired because he said that sex is determined by the XY chromosomes. Okay, getting fired for saying that. That's what everyone's been taught in med school for many years. Okay, and he's being fired, a biology professor, for saying what everyone's been taught for all these years. Okay, so that's kind of a big thing. The university's claim essentially is this atheistic viewpoint that humans are just talking primates, evolved from other primates. And well, if that is true, I don't believe it is. I think humans are created in the image of God. But let's say that were true, then would this line of thinking work for other animals? Imagine a dairy farmer when a new calf is born. Should he check, does it have a Bozak or a Virginia? Should he ask it what it prefers? And what I'm saying is, if the rules should be the same for humans as for animals, and then you say that they're not, then you're basically saying humans are different than animals. Are you admitting by saying that, the university, that humans are created in the image of God? I mean, you see the differential point there? And by the way, I learned this from a patient many years ago. I had to encourage him to practice safe sex. And he said, oh yeah, strap the Bozak with the Jimmy hat. That's where I learned what that means. So anyways, another thing too. Now they're saying that doctors should no longer assign a sex at birth, as if they don't know what the sex is. So again, I have nothing to do with pediatrics or OB-GYN, but I'm just saying these are new things. Okay, these topics would never even be considered back, when I went through all my training many years ago. And I don't hear anybody from Harvard coming out and clarifying these things. Okay, now here's the other thing. This is coming from Canada, but it's not just to Canada. There's something called MAID, medical assistance in dying, MAID, a little I there, okay? And so the articles in the scientific literature, this is coming from the journal articles at PubMed, saying that they want to legalize medically assisted suicide in children less than 18 years of age. And they said, oh, it doesn't really matter. These children are mature minors. So even though they're less than 18, they're claiming that these kids are mature enough to consent. And they're looking at the experience of Belgium and Netherlands in helping young children to commit suicide. I mean, this is what I'm saying. When you have atheism, there's no longer any rules. Whatever, somebody with money wants, that's what the new rule is. And you no longer have any ethical foundations to dispute this, okay? In California of the United States, they signed a bill which, it's a little bit of fuzzy, but there's legal interpretations of it from multiple different sources claiming that this will allow infanticide up to 28 years of age, because that's called the perinatal period, up to 28 days after birth, okay? And then, of course, we talked about it, that the babies, are often processed and their body parts are used to make medications. Other people eat those medications. So that's cannibalism, okay? You can, that's by definition cannibal, eating something from another person, all right? So I'm telling you, once you go atheism, all this stuff is all, going to be allowed, okay? And this is just the beginning of it. And that's what I'm sort of saying is, where's the university to provide us with useful, reliable information? So this is coming from the Harvard School. Now we're going to just talk about Harvard. That other stuff was other places and things happening. But, you theoretically say, well, Harvard should be the flagship leader institution. Why aren't they coming out and saying, intelligent, logical, useful things on this? I don't hear it. Okay, so here's a Harvard clown, Walter Willett. Okay, I called him that because he is the head of the Harvard School of Public Health. Look at his diet pyramid. We've talked about this before. I made other videos about it before. It's not even just mediocre or stupid. It's wrong, okay? Right at the bottom of his pyramid. First of all, he has exercise on here. Okay, that's nice. But then right at the bottom of the pyramid, he has eat healthy fats and oils like olive oils and other stuff, sunflower oils, soybean oil, corn oil. That's insane, okay? And margarine. Brilliant. It's absolutely completely wrong and stupid. Okay, then he also encourages poultry and fish and eggs. You feed eggs to an animal to cause atherosclerosis. That's stupid. Chicken's like one of the strongest associations with obesity that there is. Okay, fish are full of mercury and other contaminants. Then he's recommending high-fat foods like nuts and seeds. Those aren't so bad. There's some points about nuts and seeds that are not so bad, but they're certainly not healthful. There's a reason why Esselstyn don't let his patient eat nuts. Then they have dairy in here, cheese. Then they allow alcohol. They recommend a multivitamin, often a very stupid thing to do if there's iron in there, and a lot of times they got the wrong ingredients. I don't take one. Okay, anyways, I'm just letting you know that's ridiculous. That the so-called pyramid from the so-called leading institution, the Harvard School of Public Health for Nutrition by Willett, it's completely wrong. It's not 100% wrong, but it's largely wrong. You can't, in my opinion, help a person prevent disease with that. I think it's stupid. Okay, now here's the other thing coming out of the psychiatry department. You got to remember, Harvard is like the big shot academic institution, so whatever they often say will tend to go into other places and become the standard of care throughout the United States. And of course, a university professor, they want grant money. Who's got big money? Big Pharma has big money, okay? So they're always going to want to kiss up to Big Pharma and prescribe more drugs because that's how they can get more grant money. They can get more fame, okay? You know, somebody who tells you the truth, like me, you know what, I'm lucky to get, 200 views on my video, okay? Nothing. All right, somebody who promotes one of these drugs, they're going to have, sell tons and tons of them, be on all the TV shows. Okay, so here's this guy, Hallowell and Rady. Now, Rady wrote another book about exercise called Spark, and it was pretty good. And he's got some YouTube videos on his exercise that are pretty good. So I'll give him credit. He did something good, but this is BS. It's just another one of these promoting drugs for children for attention deficit. You look at the long-term side effects from those drugs, they're much worse than is widely recognized. I've made separate videos about that. That's pretty easy to find on the internet. Then also, here's another book. This guy was a graduate of Harvard, but he actually ended up being a professor at Brown University, another Ivy League school, listening to Prozac. And this was sort of the big bestseller, around 30 years ago or so, and really hyped up promotion of these SSRI, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors for treatment of depression, and they were really overrated. They caused a lot of side effects in people, and their usefulness is very overrated, and they often cause serious both short-term and long-term side effects. The whole thing is totally overrated. Okay, now I just want to get into some more Harvard textbooks here. So this is the Robbins, Cotran, Kumar pathologic basis of disease. And when I was in med school, 333 students in my class. I won the award, best student in the class. I got the pathology award. They only gave it for pathology. I would have won it for a bunch of other things too. But anyways, I'm just telling you, I was like sort of in awe of this book. I want to be a good doctor. This is the book that explains disease. But now that I go back and look at it, I got a lot more experience. I've learned a lot more. It's a joke, okay? Autoimmune, I don't even remember anything about leaky gut. If there was anything on leaky gut, it was quite minimal. No mention of Dr. Swank, Dr. McDougall, Kempner, These are guys who've done pioneering work in the treatment of autoimmune disease. They're not even mentioned. And that's how it is in everything. Hypertension. There's no mention of Kempner, the Tarahumara, the Yanomamo, the famous epidemiology stuff. There's no mention of Richard Moore, who wrote the best book ever on the subject of hypertension and the relationship between how iron pumps are affected by the amount of dietary sodium and potassium. This is one of the best all-time medical books I ever read, okay? And there's no mention of these guys whatsoever, not even of their ideas. Nothing about, there was a little on sodium, but not much. The typical thing they say is most hypertension is idiopathic, essential, meaning of unknown cause, therefore treated with a bunch of pills. Okay, same thing with autoimmune. We don't know what causes it, take our pills, all right? Atherosclerosis, no mention of Kempner, Ornish, Esselstyn, nothing about the atherothrombosis theory or hemorrheology, the work of Sloop and Gregory Sloop, MD, and William C. Roberts. They're both pathologists, and that's what I also find is funny, is almost a joke, is that the cardiologists and the surgeons, vascular surgeons, cardiothoracic surgeons, they actually really don't know atherosclerosis that well. They're sort of like plumbers. They know how to fix a blockage, but the guys who actually look at it under a microscope are these pathologists. So you would think they would quote pathologists, but they didn't. They ignored the work of the pathologists. Usually a pathologist is going to be more honest about atherosclerosis because they got nothing to sell. They don't care if it's bypassed or surgerized or what is done with it. Anyways, I can just tell you, I did a fellowship in vascular interventional radiology with emphasis on vascular disease many years ago at Harvard, and I've been interested in atherosclerosis for, about over 25 years, more than that. And I've written a bunch of book chapters on the subject and stuff. I have a lot of experience with it, and I can assure you the most important thing to know is atherothrombosis theory and hemorrhagiology. Atherosclerosis is a blood clot. You can't even make sense of it until you do that. Instead, the big thing coming out of Harvard, they're trying to promote this idea that atherosclerosis is, largely, a question of lipids and inflammation, and therefore you need separate meds, one for the lipid, one for the inflammation. I don't think that's the money. I mean, Esselstyn's shown how well you can treat it just by reducing your dietary lipids. Okay, so I think the whole inflammation thing's overrated. Sloop addresses that too. We're not going to get into that right now. But atherothrombosis theory and hemorrhagiology are the stepping stones to having any sense about atherosclerosis. The reason why cholesterol causes atherosclerosis is because the LDLs are a bridging molecule to overcome the zeta potential of the RBCs and stick the red blood cells together, so they're prone to clotting. And that also contributes to causing hypertension. Okay, diabetes. Nothing about Sweeney, Hemsworth, Brownlee, Shulman, Taylor. I don't recall Rabinowitz paper either in there. And so that's the pioneering work on diabetes. This is Brownlee, wrote them like one of the most beautiful papers ever written, okay, about how excess dietary fat, especially sat fat, causes reversal of electron transport, as that is a primary mechanism of diabetes. Shulman confirmed it with nuclear magnetic resonance spectroscopy. Taylor confirmed it indirectly by, putting his patients on a low-fat diet. Cancer, almost nothing on Warburg, and the metabolic theory of cancer. That's like the most important thing to know. Of minimal of trace anything about diet, which is like the most important thing. Nothing about T. Colin Campbell or Ornish. Ornish in his prostate study, T. Colin Campbell in his animal protein study. On dementia, nothing about deletour theory, nothing about my theory. But my theory is only published in books. It's not published in the medical literature. I couldn't get it published in the medical literature. They refuse to publish it. They don't want a new theory. Instead, they always talk about Alzheimer's, take our drug. We know it doesn't work. We know we can't really diagnose Alzheimer's, but so what? Take our drug. And that's all. That's how it tends to go. Nothing about ischemic spine. Again, I couldn't get that published in journals, but I published it in books and book chapters. And of course, my work's not that well known, but anybody who studies it, all my colleagues, they love this because they know it's right. My theory on dementia, neurovascular uncoupling, and my theory on ischemic spine, which also includes things that damage the collagen, because that's going to affect, it's a scaffolding of the spine, the anterior and posterior longitudinal ligaments. And if you damage the collagen, you get things like, we're not going to get into it now, but the effect of F- and GP are very major on the spine. This is just another textbook. This guy is a professor at Brigham and Women's Hospital, one of the Harvard Hospital, which is actually world famous for being for treatment of cardiology. And don't get me wrong, they know conventional cardiology very well. They are great at conventional cardiology. I'll give them credit for that. But they still play along with this mentality of, cholesterol is the big thing, and inflammation and atherosclerosis. They play along with not much you can do for diabetes, and that hypertension, we usually don't know what's causing it. That's actually not true. We know that in these populations like Tarahumara and Yanomamo, they don't get hypertensive. You've got the same blood pressures in teens and in your 70s. So don't get me wrong, I don't think this is ever going to change. There's just billions of dollars to be made off selling drugs and surgery. But I'm also saying too, and I said it before, and I know it's true, I've been deep into science ever since I was a little guy, back in my freshman year of college at Stanford. And I could tell you, if you have an atheistic mind view, all bets are off. Nothing matters once you accept that. Humans are talking primates, we're not creating the image of God, there's nothing special about us. Then basically whoever's got the money, whoever's got the power, they just say what the rules are and everyone else has to obey. And it doesn't matter what the truth is, okay? Patients have no money. There's never going to be anybody who cares about patients, okay? Because if a doctor tried to build this giant plant-based clinic at a hospital, he would be losing money for the hospital. Open heart surgery, $120,000, okay? Stents, about $30,000 in billing. And then some doctor is going to get, $1,000 or less telling the patients to become low-fat vegans. They're going to fire that guy in 2 seconds. They're not going to let some doctor teach patients the truth about nutrition. That would cause lots of money to be lost. That's why if you don't have a moral, ethical foundation to base what you do on, you can't do anything like this. You can't put the patient at the top value and stand up to the money pressure. You just can't do it. So that's why I think the only realistic solution is that if patients want to get the best out of their health, they have to learn about this and they have to do it on their own, because it's never going to change. I mean, there's some places that are trying. Okay, I think like a good idea is like this idea of True North up in Northern California. They're saying, come to our place, you can go on a fast, we'll teach you about nutrition. Okay, that'll give a patient a chance, okay? This telehealth is a way that patients will have a chance. But then again, too, I look on the internet and I see, things talking about low carb, keto, and all this stuff. And despite how idiotic that is, they've literally got hundreds and hundreds of thousands of views. For any view that like a low fat vegan has, there's over 1 million views for keto, low carb, all this other nonsense. So anyways, it is the way it is. And so, like I said, when I was a young guy, Harvard was like the place. I could have gone there for residency. They told me just sign the line, we'll take you. But my mom was dying of cancer. I wanted to help with my mother. So I went to Northwestern, which I thought was kind of like kindergarten for me. Then I finally got to go to Harvard for my fellowship, and I really wanted to be out in Boston. I really liked Boston, and I really liked my year there. It was good. But I'm sad to see that the institution is not rising to the problems of the modern age, and it's not providing leadership. It's sort of selling out to big pharma, and I guess that's pretty much what you'd expect. That's where the money is. But I also see this as an unfixable problem without, a religious, God-based worldview that man is creating the image of God. Without that, there's nothing that can make the rights of the individual stand up high enough to cause them to be appreciated and to stand up to all the money. So it's kind of sad to see all this stuff happening, but it is what it is. It's good to know about it just so you yourself as an individual can navigate the complexity of it all.